Hello, welcome to Africa This Month. Hi, I'm Lanre Peter, and this is where we have conversations about issues happening across the continent. Joining me in the studio today is Bayo Fesobi. Hello, Bayo.
Thank you, Larry.
How do you do?
I'm doing very great, and you?
Well, without much ado, let's get straight to it, Bayo.
Great.
In the month of August, one of the prominent issues that happened in the country is a federal high court in Abuja granting an injunction to the request of the Central Bank of Nigeria to freeze the accounts of 6 fintech companies for 180 days pending an investigation of alleged fraudulent deals. These companies include RiceVest, Bamboo, Chaka Technologies, and some others. Bayo, what do you make of this injunction by the High Court?
Thank you very much, Larry, and thank you for having me again this month. For me, it's a case of being able to find out exactly where we have missed it in this country. I mean, several countries have, just like there is no perfect system in the world, but then we all, advance towards getting it right. And in this attempt, we tend to, go through a lot of regeneration processes, and that's what I think the court injunction will probably grant Central Bank to be able to do. Because if you recall properly, you will agree with me that before this time, the federal government, the CBN rules gives room for what exactly is being violated now. And whilst these companies existed and they did not run foul for over 2 years, now we suddenly realized that there was a law that is prohibiting them from carrying out what they've been doing for the past 2 years. It beats me, and to want to query the veracity of the position of the Central Bank of Nigeria. But however, one of the beautiful things is that about that injunction is that it gave us a specific amount of time. There is a 180 days period. However, even given that, I'm skeptical about the loss these companies would incur by this kind of investigation that would take them over 180 days.
Well, what impact do you think this would have? Do you think this would have any impact on the Nigerian business space or young Nigerians who are invested on these platforms?
Yes, absolutely, Larry. I strongly believe so. Because freezing the activities of a company for about 180 days would definitely have impact on the business that company runs exactly. And for the next 180 days, they will not be able to make, not only being unable to make transactions, they will not be able to record any profit, so be it, because the activities have been frozen. So, of course, it will definitely have effect. And in a way, these are the big guys in this industry. And it will bring down, in a way, the GDP per capita for the whole country at the end of the fiscal year. In fact, if care is not taken, this might affect the turnout for this quarter of the year. If assessment is being done properly, you will realize that the input of these fintech companies, the input they have on the economy is not insignificant. They play a very, very instrumental role in helping to balance the structure, the whole system and the process entirely. And if we are able to, keep them running, we're able to ensure that the system is growing better, especially now that we are recovering from, the pandemic and the lockdown economic effects. So yes, it will definitely affect businesses of so many of their business partners.
Before we move away from this conversation, I just wanted to point out some of CBN's concerns,
Okay.
which is one, that these companies do not have the license to run as asset management companies. That two, that these companies are allegedly using funds from the Nigerian market to buy foreign bonds,
Okay.
and that three, these companies are trading cryptocurrencies. All trading cryptocurrencies and buying foreign bonds are regulations that the CBN has said for companies like that to not do.
Okay.
That's like a violation of the CBN rules. So do you think that the attention should be on the CBN adjusting its regulations to accommodate the operations of fintech companies?
Yeah, Larry, one thing about injunctions of courts is that even though we're able to pass our opinions about it, we're unable to make a very finest justification of the position of the CBN. It just could come out eventually that the CBN was just doing an audit thing and to just ensure that these guys are in place. But of course, you will agree that one of the things that would catch my attention is the inability to use cryptocurrency to make transactions. That, for me, is a restrictive law that will not make these companies to grow. And yes, I think CBN should review that kind of a policy to ensure that everybody is able to, make transactions using cryptocurrency, as long as this does not translate into breaching any of their violations.
Thank you for that, Bayo. So let's move straight to the second story of the day, which is a couple of days ago, Algeria cut ties with its neighbor, Morocco. And this was made known in an event where the foreign minister of Algeria's foreign minister accused Morocco of using a spyware on its officials, and also saying that Morocco is supporting separatist group and failing to honor bilateral commitments between both countries, especially on the issue of the Western Sahara. And it's been said that these tensions has been brewing for years. I mean, since 1988, when both countries restored their diplomatic ties, their diplomatic relations, the borders of both countries has been closed. It's not been open to each other since 1994. So this now happening again. Are we likely to see war happening in that region, or is this? What do you make of this? What is likely to happen next now that two countries that are expected to be brothers in quote are now cutting diplomatic ties, which would mean more militarization at the borders? And what do you think is going to happen in the next couple of months?
Thank you, Lanre. For me, it saddens my heart that nations of the world are yet to realize that trade, honestly, is one of the very critical factors that boosts security, prosperity, unity, and cordial relationship among countries of the world. So they got back in 1988, and the borders were closed since 1994. Now, let's flip that over. Let's assume that the borders were kept open and trade had gone on between both countries. It would be difficult for one party to accuse the other of boosting or, instigating separationist movement or something like that. It would mean that both of them would have agreed, understood each other very well, enough not to be able to suspect, using spying each other's and all of that. Now, those ones would have been eradicated if trade had been, made the benchmark of their relationship. So for me, Lanre, it breaks my heart that we're here to realize some of these bedrocks that helps the global security, helps, good neighborliness, and promotes prosperity among both countries. Trade could have been the best way to help. Now, to answer your question, or probably to react on it, is to find out exactly if both of them would probably, go into war. I don't see that happening. I don't want that to happen. But to prevent that, we still have to talk about trade. What does Algeria have that Morocco needs? What does Morocco have that Algeria needs? This symbiotic relationship could be suggested to prevent, a possible breakout of war, or the increment of the to reduce the intensity of the tension between both countries. Yes, there will be militarization of the borders. That is probably natural for both of them to do. But while that happens, let us begin to look at how to bring both of them back by looking at possible ways of bringing trade relations into both countries, because it's often said it is more likely difficult for you to fight someone who you are in trade with. You unlikely go to war with someone you are making financial transactions with. So for me, I see both of them resolving it very soon, as fast as possible, so that it doesn't degenerate and doesn't allow two foreign powers to interfere and take advantage of that opportunity to further break them apart, which might likely eventually lead to war, and which is what I want us to eventually, possibly avoid in this case.
Thank you, Bayo. A good point that you raised there that I like is that where there is trade, there is not likely to be war, you know, and hopefully Morocco, Algeria and Morocco would mend the brewing problems between both nations so that some other countries do not take advantage and so that we don't have war in the Maghreb region. So let's go straight to this third story. This is a rather funny one from Uganda, where the Constitutional Court has moved to scrap the anti-pornography law. And a little background to that story is, in 2014, a legislation was made, which that legislation banned wearing of mini skirts or provocative wears, and you know, stuff like that in the country. Since then, what that legislation has done is it increased the harassment of women in public, you know, because when it was easy to pick on women who wore revealing dresses. However, fortunately, a couple of days ago, in this month of August, the Constitutional Court has now had a U-turn and now realizes that it is inconsistent with the constitution of the country. What do you make of this?
Okay, so Lanre, I remember saying the other time that it is very important for us to pay attention to the legal system, because, you know, whilst Nigeria court was looking at investigating fintech, the Ugandan courts are looking at reversing a particular law that has been made already. And that brings me to the fact that the legal system is one of the, major pillars of democracy that supports, the human rights of, fundamental human rights of the citizens. Now, the question that comes to my mind when I saw that law, that reversal, you know, like you said, it's a little bit funny. But for me, it's not funny like that. Because between the space of that law being enacted and now being reversed, people must have suffered for this. Some people must have been imprisoned, harassed. What happens to these people? Do they just suffer suffer in vain? That's the end. People just get, their dignity of being humans robbed off them because of a particular wrong law that was made by somebody. And why was this law made this way? Probably was because there was nobody paying attention to what laws goes on into where. Now, you gave us that very beautiful background, and of course, gives us enough room to be able to find out exactly who were the progenitors of this law. And then you find out that this law was made because of a particular, probably, a misconceived position, or of a particular person or group of people. And it became law, and it was enacted. And that shows you that, Lanre, in Africa, it's sad, but we have to spread it and share that fact that we are quick to react on issues that will not move us forward. Now, what does wearing, a dress that you could afford,
miniskirt,
call it whatever name you want to call it, but then what does it mean to the constitution?
Anti-miniskirt law.
When there are laws about that could domesticate,
enabling business environment,
that could domesticate international trade laws, and then we do all that. We didn't do all that. We are focusing on who is wearing miniskirt or not.
Well, let's just say this is a win for women's rights.
Yes, it is. And for me, Uganda, I think that the direction we should focus this victory on is the seeking for justice for those who have been wrongly victimized as a result of this law. And
that's true, because
what should come up
because
next,
it was a 10 years.
You get a 10-year jail time if caught. Now, what comes to point, who pays? I think the government should pay.
Yeah, the government should pay.
Inclusive.
Quickly, let's go to Zambia, where Akande Ichilima won the tightly contested presidential election.
Finally,
and won the incumbent Egalungu to become the new president in Zambia. And this election, sixth time that he's been running against Egalungu, since that the winning president has been running, but the third time he ran against the incumbent. The international election observers have commended the election, even though there were violence here and there. But what I particularly like was that there were about 70% voters turnout. You know, but Zambia is one of the poorest countries in the world, and the new president now being a former CEO of an accounting firm. Hopefully, this would turn around. It's going to bring about economic fortunes for the country. But what do you think would happen to Zambia now that there's a new president and the country is just trying to get out of the effect of the pandemic and recession?
Well, it's a bright morning for Zambians, and we can only expect the best from the current newly elected president. And yes, the voter turnout really impressed me a lot. I mean, I had to sit down with the figures to be able to find out exactly, I mean, how they were able to generate as much as that the voters turnout. And shows you how much the people of that country are interested in what goes on in governance. And yeah, that's what it should be. That's what it should be. And if we juxtapose his background, being a CEO of an accounting firm, to bringing that into the government, I hope, honestly, I strongly look forward to seeing a balanced economy for Zambia, at least for the next fiscal years. So while we are congratulating Zambians on the victory of a new president and we are hoping for a new turnaround, I really hope that the opportunities are leveraged upon to really build a strong foundation for a greater Zambia in the nearest future.
I hope so too.
Great.
And I hope that Nigerians will learn from this huge voters turnout.
Yeah.
Come 2023, get your PVC and get ready
To vote.
Yes,
Exactly.
So the last story of today, Nigerians doctors,
Again.
resident doctors again, and for the fourth time since the pandemic started, are on strike for over non-payment of their salaries. How do we stop this problem once and for all? Remember, a couple of months ago, the Minister of Health was trying to, was it Minister of Health? He was trying to stop, Nigeria was trying to stop doctors from, relocating abroad.
Exactly.
Because they were beginning to look for a saner climb or, So how do we nip this or stop this problem of doctors going on strike at the time that there is a Delta variant of COVID-19 and people, it means that right now there's no health care.
Thank you very much, Larry. Let me state emphatically that we need doctors. I mean, everybody is important, but we need doctors more than they do, more than they ever think. But as much as we need them, we need to be able to understand what exactly we need to do to keep them in this system. And that's giving them the required environmental workspace to keep them in their job. For them, I'm sure, I mean, if you talk to doctors on the streets, they are not, around, they are not happy leaving their vocation because of this situation. It's just so sad, so sad that they have to do it. I mean, they have to just go on strike again. And this is because the government has refused to honor its own part of the deal. Honestly, Larry, I find it difficult when a system is unable to fulfill its own part, whereas two people, individuals, could move on solemnly without having issues for a long time. But when the issue of government comes in, when there's an agreement with the government, we tend to have problems. Take ASU, take NASU, take KOASU, there is always strike.
The federal government, yes, always strike everywhere. But the federal government says that it is not its responsibility. The salaries being paid to the doctors is not the federal government's responsibility, but the state government.
There are only few states that are owing as much as I can recall. Some 10, some 6, some 4. Ondo State, Edo State, and one other state owing that much. But the federal government is also owing. The federal government is also owing. So the point is, why not create a system that makes nobody owe these critical workers? Nobody is owing the judiciary. Nobody is owing the military. Why are you owing the doctors? Why are you owing the teachers?
Well, it's not just about the critical workers now. If you work, you should get paid.
Exactly.
In due time.
Well, of course.
Well, anyway, Bayo, thank you again for coming on Africa This Month. This is how much we can, take today. And to you, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, share with your friends. See you some other time.